obviously open them as people come in. I just want clients in the room. Thank you all for coming. We're going to have a briefing. Chairman Abney is going to give us an overview of the budget, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And the chairman, myself, or whoever up here can assist us with the answer. We'll do the best we can to address any of your concerns. So, Chairman Abney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We wanted to start off by first thanking particularly everyone for their support over the last month in terms of making sure that this process that we're doing stays intact. I've been here for almost 5 weeks now, and I can say that everyone has been quite supportive in making sure that not for me, but the process of turning the budget out has occurred. Certainly behind me, to my left, your right, Sharon Reynolds and her staff have just been invaluable in making sure that this keeps going. I do want to thank also the Speaker for his guidance and his help in making sure that this process goes on. I didn't get to know him as much as I know him now because I've been with him almost every night for a long time, and I can truly say in public that this person does have a heart. He always asks what's good for the state. He will listen to both sides of the story, but the final thing is always, Mark, what's good for the state. And certainly my House colleagues, and finally the members of the Finance Committee who work absolutely tireless in this process of making sure that over 1.2 million people's ideas and concerns were addressed. 75 representatives, 38 senators, the governor's staff. Rhode Island is a small but a very complex state. And throughout this whole time, I think we've got the job done. I just want to address some big themes that are contained in this package. And I don't know every single thing, so if there's a number or something that's needed, I'm going to turn to my left and ask one of the staff members to make sure we're right. But I've heard over the last week, the last several days, that Rhode Island, and I said so publicly, finally, I believe we're producing and have produced a budget that listened to what people wanted to hear. That doesn't mean that every single thing that every single person wanted is contained, but I think for the good of the whole it happens. And my observations are not from reading a newspaper or watching television. They're from sitting in a conference room downstairs listening to real Rhode Islanders give us their financial story. And the first thing I heard was that we didn't want any new taxes. And I think when you look through the budget, what you'll find is that there are no new taxes that I'm aware of that's in the budget. And I believe there's only one fee, and that may be from the marijuana plants. But we promised that we would try to make sure that that was kept in check, and I think we did that. We heard from business people, big business people and small business people, who would say, I'm trying to start a new small company, and it may not look worth it to you, but reducing the corporate minimum tax is a big deal to me when I started my small company. So we went from $450 down to $400. Again, a $50 decrease may not seem much to many people, but it's a lot to the people that I said and I heard and I talked to. Over a period of time, we've heard a lot of talk, particularly from retirees who have said to me, I might be leaving the state because I'm on a fixed income and I need some relief in my retirement income. And we tried to address that across the board, not with just military retirees. And for the record, I am a military retiree and have been for a long time. I get a federal pension from the military. I would love nothing more than not to pay any taxes on that, but I do. But we wanted to address the issue of our senior citizens who were on fixed incomes. So what we did was look at the broader picture and decided that we would, as much as we could, provide a tax break for those who are receiving pensions on the first $15,000 of that particular pension if you are retirement age. And if you are single, I believe the number is $80,000, and if you are married, $100,000. So we're beginning to address that issue of people who are on fixed incomes or who ask for it. That's what I meant by listening. And that's going to affect over 60,000 citizens that we have. In the last few days, we've thought that, well, you know, people have been asking for what can the little person do? And it's no joke, we did work together to reduce some of the beach fees that we've had. So now we've rolled those back to 2011 limits. That allows people with families, and again, you know, to people who work every day, to people who are working hourly, it makes a difference whether you have to pay $30 or $40 or $50 to take your family to enjoy some of the best beaches in the world here. We heard from our medical marijuana patients who actually called me a lot and said, you know what, why tax me if I'm sick? So what we did was take a look to see what we could really do and decided that we would just have a fee of $25 per plant on the marijuana plant so that it wouldn't appear in their reality and it wouldn't appear for real that we were charging people who were sick. That's a big deal to a lot of people. We obviously improved our grant program, and I want to say this. We listened to Rhode Islanders when they said we need to improve our grant program, and we did that. It wasn't easy. I had phone calls today of people calling me, telling me how difficult it is going to be for some of those who were receiving grants, some of those who were doing things for this community that we as the state don't necessarily do. But we sucked it up, and we had to make some tough decisions, and I think in the past we'll probably have to make even more tougher decisions. We cut the unemployment taxes so that if you own a business and you end up having to pay less, and I think the total is somewhere around $30 million less that would have to be paid toward unemployment taxes. That helps the business owner, the small business person. It makes a difference. Now, it didn't cut back on the benefits that the individual was getting, but those are real numbers that make a huge difference. We also heard from the public, and we know that the money that was allocated for the rollout of the tourist program didn't go as it should go, but we realized that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I do think that there still needs to be a state program that we have that will incorporate all of the great ideas. But we also recognize that many of the good ideas also come from the local agencies, and so we took, I believe, like 1.2 million, I think, something that sort. Yeah, something that sort, to give back to the local agencies that market their areas. Yeah, 1 million. So we think that that's a great thing to do to make sure that the locals have a say, and we did that for 1 year. To take a trial look and see how that works. And so that's a great improvement that you'll see in this, returning money to the locals to use that. All of the cities and towns that ask us for relief in some sort of way through bond issues, we put those in the budget too for the local authorities to make the decisions of whether or not to go off the bonds, and that's important. We put money into an innovation center that will be at URI. Many reports say that good innovation comes from good ideas, and good ideas many times comes from the colleges and universities. And we put 20 million into that will be housed with a URI entity to make sure that Rhode Island stays on the cutting edge of those things that are being innovated. We made sure the school construction stayed in place. We couldn't give all of the money that we wanted to, but we made sure we didn't stop any construction or money for schools that were underway at this point in time. We restored Medicaid COLA. I heard time after time after time in our hearings from people who do work in these nursing homes, the people who are on the front lines, who hadn't gotten raises in a long time. So we put money back into the Medicaid COLA to benefit the nurses and the people on the front line who are taking care of those who need our help the most. And when you see as many of those as I did, you realize that that is hearing the Rhode Islanders, and we really care for that. Also, we know that if we want to become the great center of commerce that we do, we have to make sure that TF Green and our air service is good. So we're extending the runway there, but we're also still trying to make sure that we get airlines that will have direct routes into our area so that commerce can be done. So we make sure that we put money into that. And the development of Quonset Point. Quonset Point is a great asset that we have. I myself was in Panama now about 3 years ago, watching them redo the Panama Canal and talking to Americans who were there, particularly those from the East Coast, and saying, you know, when that is done, and it's probably close to finishing now, there's going to be a lot of ships coming up the East Coast. And we want to be competitive for that traffic that we can get. So there's money in the budget to take a look at that. Up to $50 million in ways for affordable housing. We heard our constituents when they said we need money for affordable housing to take care of those who have less than. So we looked at that, and I think we've addressed that. We also addressed environmental and health initiatives. The Veterans Home is a very, very thing that's dear to me. We have thousands of veterans in Rhode Island that need to be taken care of. And I've been out to the Veterans Home building, and it is a magnificent state-of-the-art center that we're building. So we wanted to address that. We know that we have a lot of work to do in terms of addressing our public schools. And we're trying to make that work between public schools and charter schools. Both are important. One is really not more important than the other, and children are learning. But we have to balance between the sending districts and the receiving districts. So we work very, very hard on that. Also, it was brought to us through your representative that we have to be on the cutting edge when we talk about renewable energy. And so we have in the budget plans that will allow for the renewable energy program that Rhode Island has to continue and to develop. So those are the big themes. The numbers are here in the books that we have. And I have to say that as I talk to people every day, most people say, thank goodness you're thinking about and looking out for the little people as well as everybody else, in the sense that there are a lot of people frustrated. I recognize that. I know that. I knew when I took this job that there were going to be people who would like what happened and there would be people who didn't. But I have to say we're trying to make sure that we're balanced, because these are public funds that we're spending. So with that, we can open the floor up for questions, and if I can't answer them, the speaker can, or someone here can always make sure. Yes, sir.
Hi, Steve with Rhode Island Future. Youth Pride Incorporated did not get their grant. They're projecting a $50,000 shortfall, and they're saying that they're the only group that serves LGBT youth in the state.
I've gotten a lot of questions about that. You know, interestingly enough, nobody likes grants until they affect them. The process that we used was to look at something that was a compelling interest, unique, that wasn't serviced anywhere else. And I know that that grant goes for a very worthwhile purpose, as a lot of other grants that were phased out too, but those services needs potentially are being addressed elsewhere. So that'll be an ongoing conversation, but interestingly enough, you get asked to end the grant program, and I've been talking more about grants today than just about anything. So, you know, there are compelling needs out there. We're trying to balance the public's desire versus individual groups' desire to continue to do the good work that they've always been doing. We've acknowledged the need. We've acknowledged that these groups do good work, but you can't satisfy both interests, simultaneously. So we did the best we could. We'll look at the purpose of that grant and where the monies went and how they were being utilized, and try to make a determination. Is that service being provided somewhere else? And one suggestion that I heard is guidance counselors in the school are in fact providing it, not as specifically, but it's something that is being addressed through other means. So we'll take a look at it and we'll see if it's unique enough to fund. But I think the public has said they don't want the community service grant program, and we've acquiesced and we've responded to that. And you really can't have it both ways. If you get rid of the program, some of these grants have to just go. But we'll look at it, because there are important needs, and that's an important group that you do want to make sure is addressed and appropriately cared for. So, you know, it's one of a bunch of grants that unfortunately some folks are not going to want to see go away, but we'll,
Yeah, I think because Pride is next week as well, so people are going to be, it's definitely,
well,
it's going to be in
you
their
know,
mind.
and I understand that. That date is just coincidental.
Sure.
You got to look at the need that you want to address. And,
Right.
you know, I understand the need, and we'll see if it can be addressed in other ways, and if it can't, you know, we'll take a look at it. But it's certainly a worthwhile, you know, worthwhile cause, a great group, but there's a lot of great groups and great causes out there that you just haven't been able to fund under the desires of the public.
And I just want to quickly echo what the speaker just said. Just this morning, before I left home, I live in Newport. I had churches, pastors calling me to express their concern about some of the small grants that they've gotten, which exponentially have helped a lot of people. So it was a tough decision to make in terms of groups like that and in terms of groups like religious organizations or others that help people. So it's tough, but I think we made the right choices in terms of reforming the program. And it's a living and breathing thing that we're doing.
Anyone else?
Can you explain what the thinking was behind the changes to the charter school funding formula? I know it's still in the works, but
Yes, I can take a look at it. You know, there's always. First, let me start off by saying, whenever you change a formula, unfortunately there are winners and losers. The intent was to help as many children as you possibly could. Now, if you look at the charter school universe, the plan that we actually passed out of committee is $1 million better for charter schools, the total universe. Amongst that universe, of course, there's winners and losers depending on the unique cost. The urban charters, I would suggest schools that you really want to help do much better off with the formula. The suburban mayoral academies probably less better off because of the pension unique cost that they don't pay that the other charter schools pay. So our goal and the final decision maker was equity. This is a more variable plan. It addressed the specific unique costs of each district. Each district is treated differently, and overall charters are better off. So, you know, so you might get the idea that this was more penal to charters. No, absolutely not. The charter universe is $1 million better off under this plan than what was proposed by the governor. It's more variable, it's more district specific, and therefore more equitable. And more equitable is better for the total number of students within that universe. But it's we've received a lot of inquiries regarding that, so it's an ongoing discussion. It's the same as when we enacted the school funding formula. As good as that formula is for the state of Rhode Island, and it creates equities, the perception of winners and losers, which I don't agree with. If you are a loser, that means you were a winner for too long, because the formulas are designed to neutralize the inequities. So if you were benefiting too much, you're going to perceive yourself as a loser, but you're really not. You're being brought to where you should, so that someone that was actually losing can be brought up to where they should.
Jim Abney from the Developmental Disability News. I wondered about your thinking in terms of the DHDDH budget, where the governor asked for a total of almost 17 million, and as far as I can figure out, they got 11 million extra. And I attended the hearing.
Keep going.
I attended the hearing and listened to Director Montanaro say that the department was chronically underfunded and they needed a particular sum of money. I think it was 5.8 million. She might have not mentioned the number per se, to eliminate a chronic deficit. They did say they needed all the money to not come back and ask for more money to fill a deficit, but you indicated that they should if I'm characterizing this correctly, that they should basically live within their means. So I just wanted to ask you what you're thinking.
We actually funded everything that was requested. The only thing we didn't fund was the caseload growth because we didn't believe the caseload was there. The caseload is not there. So as the governor requested, we actually funded, but for caseload.
You added new funding less the caseload?
Yes.
Okay.
Caseload growth. Caseload growth.
Caseload? Okay. That's it.
Good question.
Hi. Could you talk a little bit about the funding request the governor had for the drug crisis? It's one of the things she's pointed out that she wishes that was spoken.
Actually, I believe the governor's office was in error with that comment. We funded exactly as they requested. However, we got updated numbers from the Department of Corrections, so the numbers were less, so that's the only difference. But the formula, as they requested, we funded them. And I pointed that out to the governor, and she's looking into that. But I believe we funded that request per request, absent the case of change.
I have one more. The net metering made it into the bill, and it seems like it's not quite the net metering bill that it could be, because it seems that it's been changed from the initial ideas, and it's been undercut, and it looks like it might, some people are telling me it might not be workable in its current form.
I mean, that's a very broad question. So
Yes, it is.
I'm just not going to answer it as it's posed.
Well, how about this then? What would necessitated the changes from the initial proposal to what it is now?
One of the changes is a 2-year moratorium in the bill, expanding it from municipalities. And the thought process was municipalities are having such a hard time citing land. And municipalities are generally slower in acting. And there's a limited amount of land that will host these types of large projects. So you want to give the municipalities first opportunity to get in and utilize the available real estate to do these projects. The private sector, the nonprofits are going to move much quicker. So cities and towns serve the greatest number of residents that will receive the greatest number of benefits from the net metering. Want to make sure they have an opportunity to participate, and then it'll be expanded. We fully support the virtual net metering program. We just want to make sure that the cities and towns are not blocked out by over-proliferation from the other sectors, which are much quicker to move. They'll buy up all the land and available resources much quicker.
Although normally, aren't we more business focused than that when we do these kind of budgets? So it seems like that would be an anti-business thing, since we're slowing business down.
It's not anti-business. We want to address and make available this program to the greatest number of Rhode Islanders before it's opened up to the business community or the nonprofit world, and that's through municipalities.
Sort of a strange question, because I'm confused a little bit by the format. In past years, the briefing has been for the legislators to ask questions about things so that they know going into the weekend whether they need to put together an amendment. Is this going to be opened up to legislators?
It's opened up to everybody. I'm just not getting questions from legislators at this point.
We're the only ones who've been done.
Don't be shy. If anyone in the room, please ask.
Yes. Can you explain the rationale for returning the tourism formula to what it was 2 years ago, and how much was cut from Commerce's request of an additional $5 million?
It's about $1 million, I think. All right, it's $1 million. The thought process was that the tourism campaign that is being developed by the Commerce Department is not quite ready. It's not addressing the community's needs. We're going right into a tourism season. I don't want to say we lost the season, but the local councils do a lot of great work, and because Commerce is just not ready to be where they need to be, we gave $1 million back to the local councils for 1 year so that they can engage and fully market our tourism season as they've always done and as our citizens need. And then after that, the formula reverts right back to Commerce. And our expectation is that at that time, Commerce will be in a position to have a robust marketing tourism system in place. And if they don't, we'll revisit that next year.
Kind of question, which is, the night that House Finance was voting, we heard some items were still under negotiation. We may not have seen the final bill yet, and may be changed on the floor. Can you tell us what's still under negotiation?
I want to say nothing because I don't want to open the floodgates. Everybody's asking questions about everything though, so officially nothing's open for negotiations. Unofficially, the empowerment schools. We had a lot of discussions about the empowerment schools. We're trying to get as much buy-in as possible. My belief is that we've spent too much time in the past working on reform that failed because not everybody was rowing in the same direction, so I'm trying to get everybody on the same page so that our education reform is successful in the future. So we have ongoing negotiations, and they're actually quite productive. So I hope that the ultimate product relative to empowerment schools and education reform will be something that really serves our students very well.
Is there any negotiation around the charter school formula, which seems to be one of the big issues that people are chattering about? Is that set in stone, or are you talking about that?
Officially, it's set in stone.
It's set in stone.
It's set in stone. Obviously, I've heard a lot of concern regarding it. There's been a lot of requests, and usually when you explain it, they say, oh, okay, I get it, I understand. So let's let everybody digest the formula, and then, we'll see if we need to consider any changes. And we always would consider changes for a better product. I think the variability in the formula as it's currently designed addresses the unique situation of each community. It seems to me to be the most fair way to do it. But you could always build a better mousetrap. So if someone comes up with a better idea, we will always listen to them.
There must be an enormous amount of pressure around the grants that were cut. I'm assuming that, but that's a question. Is there an enormous amount of pressure to store some money, and are we likely to see any changes, any additional grants, anything else added in the final product on that report?
There's a lot of concern and questions. The grant program, as it was previously constituted, served a lot of good community needs. They became very controversial, and as a result, we acquiesced to what I believe the public wanted us to do. If you're going to get rid of the program, you're getting rid of the program. Everybody, you can't get rid of the program and maintain it exactly as it was. That's disingenuous, and I try not to be disingenuous. Actually, I'm not disingenuous. So if you're going to get rid of the program, our formula was unique community concerns and needs that weren't being addressed in some other way. So there's a lot of great groups out there doing great work. But if that need could be satisfied through something else that's available in the community and government somewhere else, that may address that need irrespective of how important that is. So I am not making a judgment of whether something's important or not. I think they were all important. And, you hate to see community needs not being addressed as robustly as they were. But that was the request of the public, and we're here to serve the public as they request. Yes?
Carol.
Yes, Deb.
It's okay if I have a question.
Oh, yes.
This is back to Article 18. The original article had started the virtual net metering in 2017. We pushed it back 2 years, 2019. So what companies are going to come and invest in a program that starts 2 years from now, it ends in 2 years, and has a cap? So, what was our thinking around that?
The thinking was, and I answered that previously, so I'll be brief and I'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
Municipalities are slower to act. So, and there's a limited amount of land that will site these large projects. So we want to give the municipalities that serve the greatest number of Rhode Islanders the first shot or the first opportunity to engage in it before the business world and the nonprofits and the private sector that acts much more quickly and makes decisions much more quickly scoops up all the good land. That was the thinking, and it's always open to discussion.
Municipalities do that, we are in the business of buying up. We can talk offline.
The
about
developers are working on projects for municipalities right now. So it's going to be the same developers, it's who the ultimate user is. And right now, the ultimate user, benefactor, are the citizens of municipalities. The projects are still being invested in and created. It's just like the Coventry project. It's for municipalities to benefit. So, and because they act more slowly and there's a limited amount of real estate that can site these, we decided on the delay. That's the policy consideration in that regard. I understand that it's an industry that wants to explode and may in fact do that, and that's a good thing. But if you're blocking out the municipalities, that might not be a good thing. So we'll weigh those considerations. I'm sure that's going to be an ongoing discussion. Jim.
A couple of areas of concerns that I have in reference to the obvious, come out, Obamacare. We currently fund so much for Obamacare. With the national elections coming up, I think there needs to be a conversation, depending on which party gets in. Okay, Obamacare could be out, and I would just like to bring attention to that, And with that said, in the areas of charter schools, I have a bill in right now, and it identifies, outside interests that pertain to medical academies and charter schools. I have, in my district alone, I have $38 million worth of real estate. When I say that, $15 million on 52 Broad Street, the old St. Patrick's, and a $20 million high school, okay? All this real estate is owned by civic builders out of New York, okay? And I'm not only focusing on them alone, but I have a bill in that contains and says that they need to pay some kind of taxes, okay, to the cities and towns for their services. They're already appropriated 30% for capital improvements. That would be nice if someone basically took our mortgages, your mortgage, Marvin's mortgage, and said, guess what, I'm going to give you 30%. We need to look at that.
All right, we will, and I'll talk to you about that afterwards, Jim. Right now, let me get questions, but we'll talk after this briefing.
Thank you.
Yes, Teresa.
Thank you, Speaker. The thing I've been hearing a lot about is the beach pass fees, because
Yes.
a lot of people do tend to purchase them early and right on.
We're going to address that. I've had a conversation with the governor's office, and as far as I'm concerned, they should refund the difference, and as soon as we pass the budget. They should start the process now, because that's going to be in the final version.
And I appreciate that you made the communities whole, the host communities, I really do. And then the other one is
At the finance committee.
well, praise whoever deserves it.
Chairman Abney.
Thank you. And then OHIC, the cuts to them, the 9 FTEs. I, as a person who has the last of the small community hospitals, or the only remaining community hospital, OHIC has played a very important role in making sure that the insurance companies stay in line, and I am very nervous about cutting the staff of OHIC.
Well, let me say this, we haven't cut anything. We haven't increased it by $1 million. Those 9 employees are on federal grant. It expires in September. I don't believe the appropriate policy is to allow FTEs to grow under federal grant, because we always hear it's federal money, it's federal money. When the money runs out, the programs are up. So we have not cut one position. We have not funded 9 additional positions with general revenues after a federal grant expired.
I fear that that will have consequences that go everything from overseeing the 4 insurers to make sure that they are, we've seen the rate drops. We saw the most recent ones that came out. We have one that's lowering, and we have others that are in single digits for the first time in
We will make sure, and we'll look at it individually, that they have the resources to do their job. However, this is a policy consideration that transcends OPEC. There's always the concern, we want to encourage work on the federal grants. Every time a federal grant expires, everybody wants the funding to continue. You have a government that Rhode Island cannot afford. We have to set our policy as we welcome the federal grants, but when the funds expire, there's no new general revenues for the FTEs. I hear that concern on the floor all the time, and you can't artificially grow your government that way, because I believe that if the federal government wants to give us money to start programs or to fund programs, that's great. It benefits our economy. It puts people to work. We should encourage that. However, when that money's gone, you don't necessarily every single time apply Rhode Island general revenues to it. That would discourage the use of those monies, because then we'd say, no, you can't do that because it's going to become a general revenue obligation later. So I want to make sure the policy works appropriately across the board, and there's 9 positions there. I've looked at most of those, and OHIC will survive without doing the functions that those folks do.
I hope so. I just want to point out that that rate review process saved us $40 million.
They will continue to do that. That's their primary function. That they will do. And they've expanded it with the federal grant. I mean, they're going to be able to do their core function, perform their core function without those positions. But that is not a cut to OHIC. They're losing the benefit of a federal grant, and we're not appropriating an additional $1 million of taxpayer dollars.
Can the speaker explain 2 things for me? One, the rationale behind not raising the minimum wage, and then the rationale behind not raising the cigarette tax.
All right. First, the minimum wage. I am very supportive of increasing the minimum wage. We've done it 4 years in a row. I've heard from the business community that has said, just let us absorb the current rate, the current wage, before you consider increasing it again. I've said time and time again, however, and I've agreed with that. I've said time and time again that we need to be competitive with our neighbors. Our citizens deserve the same standard of living. 4 years in a row is a lot of increases. Let the business community absorb it, get used to it, apply it, and then I've indicated we're going to look at it next year. Just give them a little bit of a reprieve, absorb it into their formula, into their business model, and then they're going to have to pay what our neighboring states are paying. So we're going to look at it, and we're very supportive of increasing the minimum wage, but we're going to do it thoughtfully. And your other question?
Cigarette tax.
The cigarette tax. We're trying not to increase any taxes or fees, just to increase our general revenues, and that would hurt the convenience stores. And potentially shift some business into Massachusetts and make us less competitive. So I didn't have a good rationale for increasing it, and we didn't. The theme of our budget is no fee or tax increases, and we stay true to that. Yes, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As it relates to the structural deficit that the state's facing, does this budget decrease the structural deficit of more than what the government proposed, or does it decrease what we have with them?
It's no worse than what the governor proposed. We're actually spending a little less money. The governor is investing heavily in incentive plan programs. We received an announcement today that I think is going to be great for the state. I think investments in the short term for long-term success is wise, so we've been very supportive of those needs, and we're investing money in such areas. So
the structural deficit
no worse than the government.
No worse than the government proposed. Thank you.
And I would suggest that if you notice, we always have a little extra revenue. Our economy is beginning to do better. I don't want to be misquoted. Not at the level that we would like, but the economy is continuing to move in the right direction. GE announced that they're coming to Rhode Island. They left Connecticut. We were third in consideration, and everybody said we lost them. At the time, I said no. Third for GE to consider Rhode Island based on our size is a win. They went to Massachusetts, probably at a level of credits that Rhode Island could never afford, but they so liked Rhode Island that they continued to talk to us, and now they're going to bring at least 100 jobs in and establish a foothold here. Rhode Island is moving in the right direction. Our revenues are going to grow through natural growth, and you know, the future is going to be a little bit brighter. We got to hope that the national economy stays strong, but the investments that we're making, the policies that we've enacted over the last 5 to 10 years are going to bear fruit in the future. Yes, Patricia.
Speaker, while I'm here, if you'd let me editorialize a little bit, I just had a preview meeting to my Division of Taxation meeting and oversight today, and I want to confirm for the press that what you said is absolutely true. I just met with the acting director, and she said they're seeing it in the income tax returns, that the economy is definitely on an upswing, and she's going to repeat that in Room 101 during the oversight committee meeting, and you're all invited to attend.
Yeah, and let's temper the enthusiasm. I'm aware that we have a lot of work to do, and we're not anywhere near where we want to be. But if we keep making wise decisions, passing good budgets, serving the interests of the public, Rhode Island will be on the move and will be moving in the right direction. GE announcing that they're going to create 100 jobs in Rhode Island, which is ultimately, in my opinion, going to grow to up to 300. Once they establish the foothold, they will grow here, is a testament to the good work that we have been performing on behalf of the citizens, and the policies that have not always been easy, but it's established an economic environment in which businesses can succeed, and that's how we get GE here. So our structural deficit long-term, I believe, will be addressed with growth of our economy and our revenues. Yes, Kathy?
I'm not exactly sure how to ask the question, but the renewable energy, Article 18, I've heard that within there are features that would help a particular company in the solar business, wind energy, accomplish what it's trying to do in Rhode Island. Is that true? Was part of this to help a specific company? And in what way would it help?
I have no idea who wind energy is, so apparently it's not true. I don't know. I mean, the policy may benefit, I don't know who they are. Well, who's the, you have a name that goes with them?
I do. I'll be glad to share that with you.
All right, the answer is no based on the information you're giving me. It's not designed to help anyone. It's designed to help the municipalities, but I don't know who that is.
Speaker, I know it's not necessarily a purview, but the tax refund status, I'm sure you've heard from constituents on it.
Yes.
So this is something you can speak to. I know it's a public announcement.
Actually, Chairwoman Serpa is going to hold a hearing on that, so I know she's been talking to them. I can tell you that I have heard from constituents on it, and unfortunately, fortunately, the Division of Taxation is not allowed to give information regarding individual taxpayers to anybody, so you can't even look into it. But generally speaking, Patricia, what's the status?
I just met with Nina Savage, and this is the third year of a 3-year phase-in of a new system that they're implementing, and it's a much more complicated system than the 20-year employees have been used to at the Division of Taxation. And they're detecting fraud in cooperation with the federal IRS. I think we're doing pretty well. As of the update she gave me about a half hour ago, there are about 45,000 income tax refunds to be sent back to our residents, and they hope to have that done by the middle of July. But as you know, since some people get extended filing, some will go into August or September. But I have a much better understanding now after meeting with Nina, so I think the members will find this very informative today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, particularly in terms of your leadership regarding the pension relief for the private pensions, public, and the veterans. I just have one question. Would it be because of the size of the fiscal note that we couldn't address giving the veterans pensions at retirement versus waiting until their social security age? Is because of the fiscal side
Yeah,
of the fiscal note?
the earlier you start it, the bigger the number gets. I would love to be able to do that. You always want to do more. We're constrained with the constraints of the budget and the available revenues. And oftentimes when someone's younger, they are receiving a pension, but they're actually still earning a livelihood out there somewhere. So if you're limited in who you can give the benefit to, you certainly want to address someone that's of retirement age and is probably no longer working versus the folks that have the pension and so forth. But, you know, we would love to expand. I'm particularly proud of that program in the budget. You always want to do a little more. But as I said, you're constrained by your general revenues, and that's as far as we could go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shelley.
Mr. Speaker, along those lines, because I got a few phone calls from constituents, what exactly is full retirement, so full Social Security age? Is that the age at which you're
Eligible for Social
collect, or
Security.
you can collect all of it? Now maybe for fiscal staff, because it's definition, full Social Security age.
It's a full. It's at least 65, 67. Full retirement age, not when you get the reduced benefit.
Not when you're eligible to get the letter.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are you there yet?
Yes, Joe.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, today I spoke with a constituent that had written me a very nice letter relating to the beach fees. Thank you. The feedback has been tremendous for that, and I really think that it addresses almost a constitutional issue. If we look at our Constitution, the founders have said access to the shore and beach. And this is something that we're working on restoring all of our families. So from my district, my constituents, thank you for that.
Thank you, Joe. I want to actually thank Chairman McNamara, and I want to correct, I actually misspoke. We had a caucus, and Chairman McNamara actually brought up the idea of a free Monday. And we looked at that, and we couldn't do it for various reasons, because you've got the in-state and the out-of-state folks that you have to consider. And then our thought process expanded. Well, if you were going to give a free Monday, maybe you just reduce the fees. And I remember when they were increased, and it was controversial, and I never liked the increase. So we looked at it from that point of view. So when someone asked me, where did you get the idea, I've advocated for it so much that it actually seemed like it was my original idea, but it was Chairman McNamara's original idea to do a free Monday, and we modified it and turned it into cutting the rates back to the 2011 level, which were basically close to in half. So thank you, Joe McNamara.
Thank you, Speaker.
All right.
Thank you, Speaker. And first I want to praise, again, Chairman Abney for being able to work on a budget that obviously had a lot of tough pieces. I really appreciate a lot of the things that I was working for around RIPTA and some of the other things in the nursing home workers too. I think were both very important pieces. I did, on the OHIC question, I agree with you, Speaker, that we want to make sure we're not maintaining things sort of that sort of get those zombie effect, but at the same time, I think sometimes we do pursue those federal things to try them out and see if they work. And as we're looking at things like that $50 reduction in the corporate tax, we also ought to make sure we're not doing something that's going to wind up having rates potentially inch upward a little bit higher, because that's obviously a much bigger impact probably than $50 on a lot of the small businesses that are really able to take advantage of the ACA as it is right now. So I hope we'll keep that in mind. There was one, I guess this is more of a question, the second part. I saw that there was 2 positions the governor had sought to put at BEM, and actually I haven't heard much about them. One, though, made sense as a lawyer around enforcement. I do know that it's short-staffed in the law office there, and if they're going to go after polluters and go after folks, and by and large, my impression is that probably pays for itself, but I'm curious if that was it. And then the other one was an environmental scientist, and I thought maybe that was there because of the new wetland regs we put in place. Where we're going to have DM doing a lot of that work and take it away from the cities and towns.
I don't know. I actually had a conversation with the governor moments before I came down. We discussed a few of the FTEs, and she's going to make some recommendations to me, and we'll we'll look at the situation comprehensively, and if there are some positions that I think might be worthwhile to add, and you know, from my point of view, and I would believe the Finance Committee's point of view, if they help our citizens, if they make the system more efficient, if the customer service gets better, if there's a palatable benefit to Rhode Islanders, we will certainly look at that. The governor made an argument indicating some of those were positions that we should reconsider, and they seem to make sense, so we'll take a look at it. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Chairman of Finance Committee and Leader. My special thank you, Mr. Speaker, is because the ELL funding, this is very important for many cities, for many community and few cities in the state, and I appreciate it. But when I look in the budget, I feel confused and I'm not sure how much was put in the budget for those, for the Formula A. Somebody tell me?
Well, I think it was as requested, wasn't it? Yeah, the ELL was as the governor proposed. And we did it as a one-year pilot.
Yeah.
It's going to sunset. I want to see how it works out. And quite frankly, I think the better way to do it is to look at the entire formula, because you keep adding categoricals on and you destroy the formula at some point. I know that we tried to get at the ELL issue through a poverty consideration, and now you're adding something on top of that. And it's certainly a vulnerable community, a community you want to assist, but you just want to do so appropriately, equitably. We made sure that there are standards in place, because I want to make sure that that money goes to the population that depends upon it and not the general fund of the city or towns.
Thank you.
Yes, Jim.
Speaker, on behalf of the veterans, I'd like to thank you and the leadership for assisting us this coming Sunday for the Newport Skydive to benefit our veterans. The speaker's been prominent in helping us with this, so I want to thank you again. He's putting on a coalition, so you reporters at the front row there, please don't forget the skydivers donation, family relief fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Joe.
I guess the chairman, grants, I guess policy in the LA. So OIC and Institute Nonviolence, where they stand at?
They're not listed as an individual grant. They could apply to the departments, but there's no individual appropriation for that.
So nonviolence, illegal service, they got cut.
They got cut.
They're gone. And OIC, where they stand at?
It's OIC. It's not in.
Huh?
It's not in.
And study for labor religions,
It's not in.
Cut. It's like as a more people got cut, and we need all that. We're talking about education and so forth.
Joe, I understand. I've always indicated that the grants address important community needs. If you're going to get rid of the program, you have to be genuine to that mission, and the public, in my opinion, has asked us to get rid of that program. I've said what policy considerations we adopted to try to get there, and that's what we did. You can't get rid of the program and not have the concern that goes along with that.
Can't take somebody from Crossroads and give them people who really need it, like keep a piece of the street and teach folks how to get a job. I mean, Crossroads, what do they do? I understand, I'm just voicing my heart and not and part of my opinion.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Speaker, Chairman, Leader. I'm proud of this budget. We've done some good work. We're working for, decent credit, increase businesses. And especially, I'm thrilled that you're talking about looking at some of the FTEs. I know as the Chair of Environment, I had recommended to the Chairman and the House Fiscal those 2 FTEs that Art has mentioned, because the environmental scientists and their attorney are really protecting the bay, and something that helps all Rhode Islanders. So I really appreciate you looking at that, so thank you.
No, we'll look at everything. Everything that's requested serves a purpose. You're competing for limited resources, so sometimes things that on a perfect day you want to fund, you're unable to fund, and you can't have all of the FTEs that people would want, and sometimes you have to force efficiencies. But there are requests that I think we're going to look at, and we're going to reconsider. Everybody in government's well-intentioned, and everybody in government wants to take care of our citizens as best as possible. But it's our job to be gatekeepers and to make sure that the government is the appropriate size in serving those needs. The more people you hire, the more needs you're going to be able to address, but at some point the government's too big. So we're the gatekeepers. We try to address the needs as comprehensively and completely as possible, while not always giving everything that everybody wants. And it's a balance, and it's not perfect, but that's what we try to accomplish. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is an easy one, I hope. $900,000 for RIPTA operating support for many of our seniors and handicapped people. In my neighborhood, let me be very vocal. I spoke to someone about the problems. And not only are they many of them are minorities and they're handicapped, I think to cut the funding to be ended, for $900,000 to be ended by January is kind of foolhardy. That's when they probably need the transportation the most, go shopping, just do basic things. And I really think when we're talking about $900,000 and a budget of $9 billion, I think we have to really reconsider and consider. Not that, I'm sure we can try and find it somewhere, and it's a matter of $900,000. Those that are in most need, those that are on fixed incomes, I think we need to really address that issue.
And well said. That's an issue that we are continuing to look at. RIPTA has to look at itself comprehensively, and they have to find ways to increase their ridership. So there is an issue as to whether or not the free passes is the right policy to accomplish that. No other state does that, and other states have more robust systems. And RIPTA itself is concerned, and they're working on policy. So we gave them money into January. We can look into that. It's a system that's being studied right now, and actually it's a system that we have to increase the benefits being provided to our citizens. But if it's a system that folks don't want to ride on, you can make it as free as you want, and they're not going to utilize it. So it's being looked at, and that's why we gave them through January, and we'll consider it next year.
I certainly have a recommendation, Mr. Speaker. If we got rid of 4 or 5 administrators, we'd be all set with the issue.
All right, but it's not. It's more complex than throwing money at it. I'm a big supporter of RIPTA, and I think they're doing good work. We have to make the system more robust, and that's what's being looked at. And once they figure out how they want to design the system for the future and what their policies and plans are going to be, then we'll look at the funding. So that's why it was a bridge funding.
Against me, not to belabor the issue. This is their only means of transportation, their only means of touching the outside world. Many of these people are alone, they don't have families, they don't have computers, so this is all they have. And this is their only way of ingress and egress for markets and for very simple things that we don't think about. And maybe it's because I have probably the most high rise of anyone, but it's a very, more importantly, it's also a lot of minorities.
We will make sure that we look at it, and we'll make sure that RIPTA becomes a system that more people use, not fewer people. Any other questions? All right, thank you, folks. We have a session to get to.